I'm so excited to be partnering with Chefy on season 11 of the podcast. Chefy is not just a platform, it's a dining revolution. It transforms the traditional dining model, giving chefs the power to launch virtual restaurants, set their own menus, prices and hours, turning every chef into an entrepreneur. Their platform liberates chefs from the confines of a fixed location, offering them the autonomy to craft their culinary destiny. For foodies, Chefy is a passport to a world of flavours, delivering diverse cuisines directly to their doorsteps. It's convenience, variety and connection all in one place, just a click away. This episode is a little different, but very exciting. I'm recording from beautiful Sri Lanka, in Galle to be precise, at the Fort Bazaar, one of the 7 incredibly stunning properties from the Teardrop Hotels portfolio. I'm joined today by CEO of the company, Henry Fitch, to talk all about the Teardrop experience, tea culture, the Sri Lankan food scene, and of course, a bit about Henry and his journey to where he is now. Just wanted to start off by thanking Henry and Teardrop, Sri Lankan Airlines, and my friends at Pepper and Seed PR for making this trip happen. I'm a very happy Hannah. Hi, Henry.
Hi, welcome to Sri Lanka.
I mean, this is the most beautiful welcome I think that anyone could have ever asked for. We're sat in the middle of Fort Bazaar in Galle. We've got a beautiful spread in front of us. Thank you, honestly, so much for having me. This is just making all the crazy, sexy food dreams come true.
Jolly good. Glad to hear it.
How have you been? I mean, we met very briefly at the beginning of this year in London. How's everything been? How's the hotels been? What's the year been looking like?
Yeah, it's been a good year. The season basically for tourism in this part of Sri Lanka starts in December. So we've been building up towards that, and it's looking good for the season ahead. And we've had a good year. The sun's shining, and we're ready for lots of tourists.
It's nice. I've got a slight film of a little bit of sweat, but that's okay. I'm not complaining.
30 degrees year round.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, Teardrop sort of comprises of 7 properties, and you've also got a restaurant as well in Colombo. How do you spread yourself around all 7 properties to kind of make sure you're sort of
It's not really about me spreading myself, it's having a great team. So We've got a group general manager, we've got different department heads who are traveling a lot. So our HQ's in Colombo. I'm based in Colombo, but I travel fairly regularly to the hotels, but my main job is actually kind of based in Colombo, trying not to interfere with the operations of the hotels. leave that to the team.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to get sort of back to Teardrop and Sri Lankan cuisine in particular, but I'd really sort of love to set the scene in terms of, your background, how you started, kind of paint the picture of your earlier days, why you wanted to get into hospitality. Was it something you were always interested in? And then sort of how you found yourself in Sri Lanka in the first place.
Sri Lanka is a serendipitous island, as we were discussing before. And, I'd been here 3 times on holiday while I was working in London, and I was working in hotel sales and marketing, and my business partners, who are also old friends of mine, were already in Sri Lanka, and the final one of those 3 trips, they said, did I want to come and join them? And I was 28 at the time or something like that, and I thought, well, why not? And came over thinking it would probably be 1, 2 or 3 years, and here I am 17 years later. So it was a bit of a shift. It was, from sales and marketing into a more operational role. Obviously, I kind of oversee most parts of the company, so it includes the sales and marketing. But I think it was a chance, a chance of a lifetime, and came over here and loved it and never looked back.
Because you're originally from Gloucestershire.
Yeah.
And had you always worked in hospitality? Is that sort of, was hotels kind of the thing that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, since leaving uni, I worked as a tour operator, worked in a ski resort for a while as a chalet host, and then sales and marketing for 2 big brand companies in London. The final one, leading hotels of the world, was a more corporate job. It was kind of negotiating rates and things like that between hotels and the business travel community. And I wanted to get back into leisure, because my previous job was with Banyan Tree Resorts. So that was a more sort of leisure-focused sales job. And I guess that's what I loved, was the people coming on holiday to the properties rather than business travelers.
Absolutely. And then sort of, 2007, you sort of make this big move. What was Sri Lanka like in 2007?
It was great. I mean, you know, there was still the conflict actually going on, but for 2 years while I was here. But it wasn't really, you know, I was based down in Galle. It didn't really affect day-to-day life here. It's such a beautiful country with amazing people, and I lived in Galle Fort for that first year and a half before moving up to Colombo. The streets were a bit dustier than they are now, and because since then they've all been paved and everything, and there's been a gentrification of Galle Fort, but it was a lot more dilapidated back then. Over time, it has, you know, there are more boutique shops and restaurants and bars and things inside the fort. So it's changed, but you know, not necessarily for better or worse. It's just, you know, it's developed.
Absolutely.
But it was fantastic back then as well.
Yeah, I can imagine. So let's talk about Teardrop. You know, why did you all decide to start it, and I guess how has it evolved over the years?
Yeah. I think back then the boutique hotel sector was very limited in Sri Lanka. Actually, even in the world, boutique hotels only came about in sort of the 90s, I think, 80s, 90s, and we were sort of still relatively early 2000s when we decided that there were a few boutique hotels in Sri Lanka, but it was very limited. There were a couple of Amans and a couple of other hotels, and there was nothing near the airport or Colombo that I would consider a sort of high-end boutique hotel. And so that was actually our first project, was 15 minutes from the airport. It was a gap in the market, essentially, that we thought, you know, there are people coming and staying at these other boutiques, but in or near Colombo, there was nothing really for them. So we started with that, and then the second project became Fort Bazaar, because again, we just see Galle Fort as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and we, you know, this was always actually, I think, going to be our flagship property. Getting planning permission took a while and all of those kind of things, but we I guess focused initially on those two projects, was Wallowa near the airport and Fort Bazaar in Galle Fort. And then since then it's actually expanded a little bit by chance. Again, this whole serendipitous thing, I met various people who said, would you like to manage this property, or would you like to lease this property, or would you like to buy this property? And we expanded based on what we knew about tourism in Sri Lanka, where people were traveling and what was needed. And so, you know, over the years, it's been a fairly organic kind of growth, I think, of the company.
I think, you know, for me, sort of coming out here and experiencing, we've only done two, just to sort of let people know, we've only done two of the properties so far on our little sort of whirlwind tour of the week. So we have started in Wallowa, which was near the airport, which, may I say, for someone who gets off a long haul flight, that what I need is exactly what it delivers.
Yeah.
It is this beautiful respite retreat where you just kind of can finally separate yourself from an 11-hour flight and sort of find yourself again in total beauty.
Yeah.
So close to the hub of it all. It was kind of like, it was a bit like, I was in shock. It was amazing. Yeah. We then sort of headed to Fort Bazaar, which is where we are now. We're then going to sort of Kuma Beach and then to Camellia Hills, sort of where sort of all the tea plantations are. But I guess what I'm noticing about the properties is that they are really thought out. There's definitely a flow between them, but they all really have their own unique feel.
Yeah.
Was that very important for you?
Definitely. And you know, the sense of place and the community in which we belong, you know, is important. The Wallowa was always there. You know, we don't like to refer to it as an airport hotel because it gives the wrong connotations. It's a beautiful 7-acre tropical garden with an old Wallowa, which means manor house, situated in the garden.
I mean, I could do a week there.
Yeah. Well, that's and now actually most people come for 1 or 2 nights, but now we've got this wellness practitioner and we're improving the food, the sort of healthy menu items and things, so people can come and just chill for 4 or 5 days, or as long as they want, basically. I mean, it's such a stunning property, but it was always meant for people arriving or leaving from the international airport. And it's unusual in the world. There's not many lovely boutique hotels within 15 minutes of a major international airport.
Absolutely.
So I think, that was a very obvious, again, gap in the market that we felt like, why wouldn't people who are coming and staying in other lovely boutique hotels in beautiful scenery not want the same when they've arrived or just before they fly?
It's always funny when you sort of go on a holiday, we always say it sort of takes a day or two to acclimatise.
Yeah.
That's fine, okay, jet lag or whatever. But actually, I feel the beauty of that property is that immediately you're like,
Yeah.
okay,
Driving
I'm here.
down the drive. It's
Literally,
the tropical
that was the
leaves
first
and
thing
stuff.
I said. And it was, I mean, we'd arrived at a crack of dawn and it was still dark. And I was like, oh my gosh, where are we? I'm here. I'm
Yeah.
ready. I'm here for this.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you've really succeeded in. For people that sort of haven't got to experience Teardrop yet, how do you experience Teardrop? You know, obviously we're on this beautiful sort of tour of the island, but
Yeah.
what could people sort of plan for themselves, or can you guys plan for them?
Yeah. I mean, we have a journeys department that can plan a route around a journey around our properties, and we don't cover the entire island, so people can tag on other hotels
Sure.
and other experiences on the route as well, and we can plan that all for them. But essentially, we've got 7 hotels. I would say never spend less than 2 nights anywhere. So a 2-week holiday fits quite nicely into 7 hotels.
Yes.
Of course, as we expand and add more properties around the place, people will have to pick and choose a little bit. Even now, actually, not many people will come and visit all 3 of our tea planters bungalows. You'd probably pick 1 or 2 on your trip and then spend a little bit longer on the beach at the end or something. The experience would be to visit several of them, and they're all, as you've already said, they're all kind of independently run in a way. I mean, we've obviously got the headquarters overseeing all of them, but they're different characters, there are different people, there are different chefs, different menus. So we try and give them all their own identity, and that's actually, to be honest, Teardrop Hotels is only a brand that we use kind of because we have to. We've given each one its own name. We don't say, well, our by Teardrop Hotels or Fort Bazaar by Teardrop Hotels. They have their own identities, and that's quite important, I think.
Why was that important?
Because otherwise it becomes a bit too generic. We want them all to be what they are. They are standalone in the region that they're in. So of course there are similarities between them and some of the colour palettes or what we do. We take, for the most part, traditional architecture that we renovate and then contemporize the interiors a bit. So we've sort of done that, but we've used different architects, we've used different interior designers, we've got different menus, we've got different offerings when it comes to the experiences at each property. And I think that's important if you are going to come to more than one of our hotels to not feel like it's a cookie cutter
Absolutely.
approach.
Yeah.
And I think the brand thing, we don't have Teardrop Hotels on, the amenities bottles in the rooms. We've got the hotel name, and that I think is important that people don't feel like they're just in a big brand.
Absolutely,
hotel.
and I guess then each property sort of stands proud.
Yeah.
For what it is,
Yeah.
and I guess what they represent. You did sort of mention about how the food slightly differs from property to property, and we must talk about food because we are in a country that I think the scene is and the cuisine is absolutely thriving.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm London-based. There are more Sri Lankan restaurants in London than ever before.
Yeah.
Why do you think the cuisine has gained so much popularity over recent years?
I don't know why it's taken this long, really. I mean, it's the food is, as you've experienced, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's almost entirely locally produced. It's freshly produced every day. It's not, every single thing made at our hotels basically is made in the kitchens, the breads and all of that kind of thing, aside from the Sri Lankan food. And it's freshly prepared with fresh ingredients from the island, generally. Whether it's the fish, any kind of the seafood, the polos, the jackfruit curries, the cashew nut curries, like it's all from Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And that I think is what makes the food here so good. Why it's taken so long to get to the rest of the world, I don't really know. But that's
We finally got there.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what matters.
Well done, everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
And the restaurants opening in London, Singapore, there's great one in Darwin in Australia. There, these kind of restaurants are taking Sri Lankan cuisine, and again, a little bit like we've done with the properties, contemporizing it a bit. So making it so that it's authentic flavors, but probably served in a different style.
In terms of sort of Sri Lanka as a country, it's this sort of very large island, so to speak. Does the food differ from sort of region to region, and sort of off the back of that, would you then, I guess, alter your menus according to location?
Yeah, definitely. And also the climate. I mean, up in the hills, it's a bit cooler, so we have a few more stews and things like that on the menus, whereas at, say, Kumu Beach, it's much more seafood. But yes, even around the coast, there are different cuisines. I mean, the south is very famous for its cinnamon, for example. There's plantations down here. Up in the north, not that we have a hotel there, but around the Jaffna Peninsula, it's incredibly famous for its crab curries. And so there are certain different, and actually the sides that come with the main proteins as well are different. Different types of breads or different rice dishes that are served as well.
I mean, something that I sort of notice about Sri Lankan cuisine, and this is by no means kind of bad-mouthing any other cuisines out there, but there is this feeling that there's these beautiful layers of flavour. I mean, for example, last night we ate at Fort Bazaar, and I had this incredible mud crab curry. It was sort of this display piece, as I'd like to describe it. But it was so layered in flavour, but I went away not feeling heavy, or kind of like, oh God, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight because I got a full night's sleep. I think that's maybe possibly a misconception in a way. You sort of look on a menu and you think, okay, curry, stews might be heavy. It's not at all.
No. And a lot of the side dishes, a lot of the vegetable dishes that come with are actually very light and relatively mild as well in terms of, you can have one or two of the dishes that are really quite spicy, and then other dishes that are actually, balance that kind of the heat. And also, I mean, you know better than anyone, I'm sure, like you eat with your eyes as well.
Completely.
And it's a visual feast. You've got your beetroot curry with a bright, vibrant red, and then, a yellow curry, the crab curry that's got the kind of like orangey tones to it. And it looks amazing when you put it down on the table. But you're right, you don't come away from it, even if you've eaten a lot, feeling really, really full. It's a very healthy cuisine, actually. And for the most part, I mean, obviously, you had the crab and I had the pork or whatever, but
which I tasted and was delicious.
But actually, the majority of, I'd say, families in Sri Lanka, it's generally quite a vegetarian diet, or even vegan. Actually, it's because it's using coconut milk, rather than cow's milk or any other kind of.
And there's not ghee isn't really used.
No,
so.
And that's what makes Indian food really quite heavy.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And, it sits there. Whereas I think if you have traditionally, you'd actually have your main rice and curry for lunch, and by tea time or dinner time, you're like, oh, I'm starting to get hungry again. It doesn't sit there for.
Well, there was an amusing sort of private joke yesterday that I think I was eating on the hour every hour. And guess what? I'm still hungry. So I'll have my breakfast in a bit.
Keep going.
I must ask, how are your Sri Lankan cookery skills?
Not very good. I leave it to the professionals. And,
okay.
And by professionals, I don't just mean chefs. I mean the home cooks who do such an amazing job.
I love that.
The best. I mean, the best food is actually in people's homes.
Yeah, always.
And so I'd leave it up to the people doing that.
I love that. So I just want to touch a little bit on sort of tea culture, the biggest sort of industry out here. We're going to be heading towards Camellia Hills, which, as I mentioned before, is sort of one of the perfect locations to sort of stay and experience this part of the country. What can you sort of tell me about, just touching on tea culture in Sri Lanka?
Actually, it was in the, I think, mid-1800s that Sri Lanka was actually a coffee producer originally.
Oh.
And then a plague basically wiped out the crop. And it was only when I say only, it's 150 years ago, tea was introduced to Sri Lanka, and it's now the second largest export in Sri Lanka after the garment industry, and it's a major part of of Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka's identity as well. I mean, Ceylon tea is known around the world for being some of the best tea in the world, and it's an incredible part of Sri Lanka and Sri Lankan culture. You go to somebody's house and the first thing you'll be offered is a cup of tea.
Yeah. You work very closely. You work very closely with the Tea Leaf Trust, which focuses on upskilling young tea pickers, getting them out of poverty through education. Why has this been so important for you guys to sort of support these communities?
Well, I mean, there are many different trusts and things like that up in the plantation areas because it is an underserved community in Sri Lanka. So the Tea Leaf Trust does an amazing job of teaching young adults, so they're generally between 18 and 25-year-olds, English. And many of them, I mean, it's an intensive course. Within a year they can basically speak English. We will work with them. We do a 6-month hospitality course because once they can speak English, of course, what do they then go and do? Many of them want to become English teachers, which is lovely.
Yeah.
But the idea of the trust is to get people into IT, finance, other industries, and we're working with them to try and get some of their graduates into hospitality. Also in hospitality in Sri Lanka, it's very it's lacking women in the industry. So that I think across Sri Lanka, it's about 8% of the workforce in hospitality are female, and 80%.
That surprises me.
Yeah, it's for various reasons, and it's a cultural thing as well as anything. But it's the Tea Leaf Trust. 80% of their students are female.
Fantastic.
So what we're trying to do is work with them to show that hospitality is a good industry to be in, and that you can work. I mean, we've now taken on 2 full-time students or former students of the Tea Leaf Trust, and we've got 2 or 3 trainees as well, and that's just in the last year or 2. And I'm hoping, because actually in the tea plantations, the tea bungalows, it is difficult to get women to work there because transport around is difficult, and they are remote areas, and so what we're trying to do is actually take the skills that they learn at the Tea Leaf Trust and be able to show them that hospitality is a good place to be.
In terms of tea, kind of like how we were talking about the cuisine, does the tea differ sort of for each part of the country?
Yeah. I mean, the tea country is sort of southern, central, but it's to do with the elevation of where the tea is grown. So, the teas in the high elevation areas are a lot finer, I would say, a lighter in colour. You wouldn't drink them with milk and sugar and stuff like that, whereas the low-grown teas are much darker, stronger in flavour. Chuck a load of milk and some sugar in if that's what you want, and that's kind of the big difference is just the elevation and the regions in which they're grown.
Absolutely. And so I guess sort of looking forward, what is the future of Teardrop? Are you allowed to talk about any exciting projects that you have coming up?
Yeah, I mean, it is an exciting time, actually. We've got, we'll be opening a 5-bedroom hotel on the East Coast called Calcutta Beach House in early 2025. So not long now until we'll be soft opening that in January and then fully open by April. It's on a 15-kilometre bay with not much on that bay, and we've got 400 metres of beachfront there. The East Coast, obviously, you've got the sunrise in the morning and dead calm seas, a very long season as well, from sort of March through until November.
And sort of this side of the island is sort of not as built up as perhaps other parts.
No,
so this
exactly.
So you're kind of one of the first to really go in.
I mean, on that beach, there's one other hotel, nice hotel.
Fantastic.
On a 15-kilometre stretch.
Yeah.
So we're sort of going to be neighbours, sort of a kilometre down the beach or whatever, or up the beach. So that's going to be 5 rooms opening very soon, and then we've got a property in Kotmale, which is in between Kandy and Nurelia, so in the tea sort of growing area, which we're planning to turn into an 18-room hotel. It's already a 7-room property, bedroom, but we're going to add more rooms, put a big swimming pool looking out over the reservoir, paddy fields to one side, a big wellness focus on that one. So we'll be having yoga shalas and spas and those kind of things, but it'll still be run as a boutique hotel, not a wellness retreat. And then we have 5 acres in Sigiriya in the Cultural Triangle.
Oh, nice.
So developing a 25-room hotel there in the years to come. That's
Okay,
project
wow.
3. We've got a little bit to go before we get
Gosh,
to that.
I've just got, there's going to be so many times I'm going to have to come back.
Absolutely, yeah.
To come and see all the new properties. Okay, so it might sound a bit random to sort of, there's no seamless way to do this, but I wanted to try and bring a bit of the iconic crazy sexy food element to the end of this podcast.
Right.
So I am going to ask you my famous quick fire questions.
Okay.
Some have absolutely nothing to do with Sri Lanka, but it's a bit of fun.
Yeah, okay.
So, and I want you to feel the whole experience.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. What is the craziest food you've ever eaten?
Ooh, I don't know about crazy, but I'd say the most disgusting food I've ever eaten is that French sausage, the andouillette.
Oh,
I
yes.
couldn't eat it. It just became
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a
I
very-
think the thoughts of what went into it kind
There's
of
a very
put me
infamous
off.
episode, I think, with Anthony Bourdain when he tries
really?
that on one of his shows, and
It's horrible.
you were a lot more polite talking about it than perhaps he was on camera.
Yeah. So it was not necessarily crazy food, but
No,
I didn't think it was
it's
crazy
the smell
when I
as well,
bought
isn't it?
Yeah,
the
it's
smell
disgusting.
apparently is absolutely shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Wouldn't have that again.
That's
definitely
interesting.
not.
That's the first time anyone's given that
Right.
answer.
And also, the funny thing is, I love sausages.
Yeah.
But that sausage is just disgusting.
Yes, I know. Okay, what has been your most memorable meal?
The one I kind of, when people ask me what's the best meal you've ever had, there's a restaurant in Ubud in Bali called Hujan Lokal, a chef called Will Merrick, I think, and I had this confit duck dish there, and it was just outstanding, and I've never stopped thinking about it. Oh, it's funny because I'd quite like to have it on the menus here, but we've never got round to having a confit duck or asking the chef for his recipe.
Amazing.
But yeah, that's the one that kind of comes to mind. Of course, if you take away all of these amazing home cooked,
Of course.
like I said earlier, I just
Absolutely.
love nothing more than
Yeah.
a good home cooked feast.
I've waited a lifetime to be able to bring this question outside of the UK. My favourite snack of all time is a packet of crisps.
Right? Okay.
What is your favourite flavour of crisps and why?
I don't know about why, but it's an easy answer. Is prawn cocktail.
Oh,
I love prawn cocktail.
No, hold on, Henry.
Walker's prawn
We've
cocktail
got a
crisps.
we've got a big problem. We were getting on so well. I don't understand prawn cocktail as a flavour because it's not a flavour.
It is a flavour. It's delicious. I've grown up eating prawn
Can
cocktail
you get them
crisps.
here?
No.
You should have told me. I would have brought some over.
Bag of prawn cocktail crisps next time you come, please.
What's Sri Lankan crisps like? I
They're
haven't had
nice.
any yet.
Well, we had the cassava.
yeah, they were lovely.
So instead of potato, you
Okay.
normally use manioc or cassava.
Okay.
And then put a bit of spice on, as you do in Sri Lanka.
What would be your second flavour?
I don't know. Why would I have to have a second flavour if I've got prawn cocktail?
Gosh.
Um,
I'm joking. I'm messing with you.
I do like. Oh, hang on. Those I do like those kettle. The salt. Is it just the salt and vinegar? The sea salt
Sea
and
salt
vinegar.
and balsamic vinegar?
Yeah, they're
yeah.
good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Do you like those?
Yeah.
What's your favourite?
Yes. I'm going to declare it to the whole of Sri Lanka. My favourite flavour of crisps is pickled onion Munster Munch.
They are good, actually.
Yeah, they
They
are.
are. Yeah. I do like that. I mean, I don't only eat Walkers.
It's fine. It's fine. I'll forgive you. It's fine because
Okay,
we're staying
good.
we were staying in your beautiful hotel.
And I'm not feeding you prawn cocktail crisps, so it's fine.
Exactly. I'm having
Just
a
nice prawns.
I was
You can
about
have
to
some
say, yeah,
prawns
the
for
prawns
lunch.
and the mud crab I'm happy with. What is your favourite Sri Lankan dish?
Black pork curry.
What you had last night? Can you sort of explain to people what's...
Well, it's a dark roasted curry powder that makes it black with the
okay.
tamarind, and it's quite a fatty cut of pork, and it's just absolutely delicious. Like
which obviously makes everything more delicious.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, here it's called halmasa, but sprats. I love sprats. Nice salty little deep fried sprats that you
Delicious.
get sometimes sort of thrown into other side dishes. Really good.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
What food brings you happiness?
Okay, so two answers to that, I guess. Sourdough toast with butter and Marmite. I love it.
Brilliant answer.
So breakfast, a really good sourdough with Marmite, or a home-cooked roast with parsnips.
Yes.
Roasted parsnips.
Love a good parsnip.
Yeah.
And I must make mention actually to the Marmite, because when I got to Wallowa on, I don't know what day it was, could have been 2 weeks ago for all I know, I knew that a British person was involved in the making of that breakfast menu, because at the
Yeah.
top it said all the breakfasts. Sort of you were brought a bread basket with homemade preserves and Marmite.
Yeah.
And I thought that hands down was the best thing I'd seen written on a menu in a long time.
Who doesn't like Marmite?
Well, absolutely, and it's the one thing that you should always travel with. It gets you out of some really bad situations.
You used to be able to get Marmite crisps.
You did.
They were good.
And I wonder why
stopped
they've
them,
been
I think.
discontinued.
Yeah.
Have you tried Marmite cheese?
No, but I've had Marmite peanuts. They do
Yes,
those now.
yes.
I don't think they're as good, actually.
No, they've got a few Marmite things actually. They've got delicious. They do Marmite rice crackers now as well.
Yes,
And
my daughter loves those.
Yeah, they're so good. Okay, final question: live to eat or eat to live?
Oh, live to eat, of course.
Hey.
I mean, why not?
Absolutely. I mean, what is life without it,
Exactly.
quite frankly?
Yeah.
Well, listen, this was truly an honour, first of all, to be able to record this in such beautiful surroundings. Thank you so much for having me this week, for hosting this beautiful, magical mystery tour. Wishing you and Teardrop the best of luck with the future.
Thank you.
I'm going to put in sort of all the notes, how people can book, come, everything.
Yep.
And yeah, I just urge people to come and see this beautiful country and do it by staying through the Teardrop portfolio.
Absolutely. Try our food.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Henry.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Until next time. Thank you for listening. If you love what you hear, please subscribe and review. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram @CrazySexyFood. Until next time, bye.